And we are back live online with Love Guns Freedom with Luca Zanna and Michael Haywood. And we also have a special guest. And let's see, hopefully still there with us. Here we go. Special guest, mystery guest. Are you still there?
I am, sir. Nice to be with you.
Perfect, sir. And by the way, it's an honor to have you with me because I would like first of all introduce your name, but still far we kept you as a secret mystery guest. Your name is Mr. Greg Evensen. And since I became an American, 2005, I've been reading about you. And more important, I've tried to learn from different sources, different people that were before us, especially the generation before me, before us, about the threat of the New World Order, global government, and what's happening to this country. So I'm very grateful and it's an honor to have you with me on the show today. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor always to be able to speak out for the good things that are still happening in our country.
Perfect. Please, Mr. Greg Evensen, I would like to give you the chance, because, your accent is better than mine on top, to introduce yourself and also to share a little bit about your background. What is your background, professional background, and also spiritual background, please?
Sure, thank you. I guess I would probably be most comfortable in stating that I spent many years in law enforcement. When being a peace officer meant something, it was not how many weapons I carried or how many people answered a detail. It was getting the job done on behalf of people that were expecting to be helped and not corralled. As a local police officer in the Kansas City area, I spent a couple of years there, was then hired by the United States Secret Service as a special agent, but was budget cut almost before I hit the ground, unfortunately, in 1974. But I had also been accepted by the Kansas State Police, the Highway Patrol, as a state trooper, and spent time there assigned to governor's security on occasion and also on the turnpike.
Perfect. So you are a peace officer. I like to use this term because now everybody call it law enforcement, and that scared the hell out of me because I remember that when, for example, learning from constitutional activists out there, especially that used to be peace officer, it's a big difference between a peace officer and a law enforcement personnel. First of all, when did you wake up? I mean, as a peace officer, you took an oath to defend this constitution. And a question: did you also serve as a veteran in any armed force?
Yes, I was in the United States Army, okay. And I have to tell you that my awakening came shortly after that time in the early 1970s by a good friend of mine, Sergeant Kurt Shaver of the Olathe, Kansas Police Department, who said, come ride with me, there's some things you need to know. And it started right there in 1973.
Perfect, because that's why I remember that you had two different backgrounds. One as a military man, that you took an oath to defend this constitution, this republic, and also you renewed this oath as a peace officer. And you have also, it's important because when you talk about things that now we're going to talk about, dangers that we are facing as a nation from enemies that they are within and also from outside. I mean, it's important that you're not just a guy like I could be myself, I'm just a regular guy, try to learn, sharing facts, information. You're also a person that have education in the military experience and also is in the Constitution and also as a peace officer. That is very important. So,
I think, Luca, if you're going to have any substantive impact on society, especially today, you have to speak with some experience and background and training in this area. And I'll just tell you very quickly that I believe that my experience is such that I know the difference between good law enforcement and not, between good policing and not. And we're in a very, very sad period of time where now we have become a police state of tyranny, pretty much pushed by the administration to make sure that people are under constant control.
Perfect. And now let's start to address facts that I've already been talking the last my few shows here since I started this new journey on the air. For example, we need to look at this like a puzzle because there are different elements. They are happening, and they have been happening not just now with this administration, but at least the last 30 years. But of course, all is accelerating the last 6-7 years. I say the last 14 years at least since 9/11. I would like to start to talk about a little bit about things like things that now we need to look from your perspective. You can give me exactly your opinion, or at least your professional opinion, where all this leading us. For example, National Defense Authorization Act. You're very well aware of that. What do you think about this? Why it is different from the Patriot Act, or at least is like an improvement of the Patriot Act?
Basically, it is because what we're seeing is a package that was sold to the American people politically under the guise of defense, and therefore that is a good thing for us, when in fact much of it trailed off into NSC financing, CIA financing, and that of the national police agencies, none of which are constitutionally granted in the U.S. Constitution. And so we're under this increasing power of the police mentality. There is a place to secure people. There is not a place to be tyrannical.
Perfect. And the point, now we really are in a pre-Magna Carta world. I mean, we are now, the state has this absolute power to detain indefinitely any of us just because suspected to be terrorists without any more due process, no more habeas corpus, no more judge, jury, lawyer. I mean, this is scary. People, we can put everything on the side and, we can discuss about economy or different philosophies about how the government should work, whatever. But one thing we should all unite, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians, Republicans, about this situation now with the National Defense Authorization Act. That would be the warning that we already are under police state. What do you think? I mean, this is
No, you're exactly right about that. And unfortunately, the right of the Fifth Amendment against unlawful search and seizure and self-incrimination, that's also Fourth Amendment, I should say, is lost. The right to speak freely is only now granted by certain agencies. And if you speak far too much, or you have a free speech zone like was set up in Nevada, this is a complete and total fabrication, and it's a terrible thing to do to the Constitution. Habeas corpus, which guarantees that you are in court within a certain number of hours before a judge answering to a crime, is one of the things that separates us from the rest of the world, and these things are basically going away quickly.
Exactly. Now, this is for me one of the most important things. Of course, we have a Patriot Act from the other administration that was pretty much a precursor of what we have today. Now we need to look at, with Mr. Obama, the implementation of this, let's say, civilian army, this Department of Homeland Security, these billions of rounds. I lost the count how many billions of rounds they've been bought by the federal government for civilian use. I'm talking about hollow point ammunition, not full metal jacket like approved by the Geneva Convention that would be used only by the army or the military. And we're talking about also now almost every county, even here in Mojave County in Kingman, they just got this huge armored vehicle, more than 4,000 armored vehicle displayed, in every almost city or county.
Yes.
And then we have, of course, now something that for me is very disturbing. There is a FEMA document directly from FEMA website that a few months ago they pretty much admitted that they're going to have the help from Russian special troops in case of an emergency on the U.S. soil to patrol U.S. soil, our streets, instead of using our National Guard that, of course, conveniently is now it's overseas or at least spread out. We will have Russian troops, the same Russians that now supposedly we are, mocking in Ukraine. It's almost like a show. We're going to have them here, and I heard that they're already here. What do you know about that?
Well, I know that there have been individuals called me from police departments, sheriff's offices, and even a few state troopers that have confirmed to me that Spetsnaz is active in this country, as are other elements of the Russian military. And I would simply ask, what for? We have 700,000 law enforcement officers in this country, and not counting the military. There is no need for it, but it is to blend foreign governments into our own, so that when the final push comes to control the American people completely, they will not be able to rely totally on our military or law enforcement because of the loyalty that these people feel to the American people.
Exactly, and we know that the new world order, that I know people used to laugh at us years ago, or not that long ago. Now also mainstream media, they start to use this word, and we know that there is a man, I call the man because he's not even the president in my opinion, until he proved me that his birth certificate is real, that right now is in the most powerful position in the country, at least as a management, as a face. There are people behind him, we understand, but right now he's setting all these things up. For example, there was an executive order just a few days ago. I don't know if mainstream media released this information. In New Mexico, Mr. Obama took federal control of more than 500,000 acres. That this is now under this sort of a special land that only animals pretty much can go, no more humans. And it's happening. This confiscation of land under the federal grab is happening everywhere with different excuses. You know, the bandits, what happened, I was there. I witnessed with my video camera the story, or at least part of it. And now it's happening in New Mexico, it's happening in Wyoming, it's happening everywhere. At the same time, we have these international troops. They're not just Russians. You know that. They're more than that.
That's correct.
And they're coming almost to back up this plan in a subdued way. Now, what do you think really things going to happen the next, I know you're not, we're not psychics, but you have a lot of data that you can compute, and according to your experience and to your data, what do you think happen things the next 12 months, 2 years before the next election, with all this situation connected to the economy, and more important, with all this play of force, because sooner or later something must happen. We have all these rounds, Homeland Security, NDA, Russians, Chinese in Hawaii that we heard since last Christmas. United Nations, Mr. Kerry signed this United Nations treaty without even with Senate approval. What do you think is going to happen, in your opinion?
Frankly, if the American people had the knowledge, the will, or the desire to say no more of this, that the state of Nevada could have told the Bureau of Land Management leave, which they ultimately did. The sheriff said that 40 minutes later, those folks were packing up and getting out. You see, the states have ultimate sovereignty. That's why we have a 10th Amendment. And it's not used. The state governments are afraid they'll lose funding if they stand up to the government. They must do it. They are the single shield for the American people, short of the American people taking the issue into their own hands.
I understand. So it's pretty much also back to the people, because I know that also you write very great articles. I like them a lot about also the fundamental role of the militia as a citizen militia, as the role of the man and woman. Even the woman, I say, even technically, the militia used to be just the men, but every able body to be ready and organized to defend the country as the last line of defense against any tyranny. Tell me, first of all,
Luca, there are people acting within the militia that are responsible people, trained people, and they really do understand the meaning of what the militia is. Unfortunately, there are always, in every organization, there are some that should probably not be there. But they're far outnumbered by the folks that are saying, we need to be the final guard and take that stand. That's what we did in 1775 and 6, and that's what we need to do now. They have a role to play.
Exactly. And, I study history a little bit, and I see that, of course, history is repeating itself, but at the same time, the enemies of the freedom, the enemy of that we're facing today, unfortunately, they have a little bit of advantage. It's called technology. When was the 1775? It was still man against man, was Muscat against Muscat, and we had, I think, a fair chance to be successful in defending our freedom. What do you think today with the new technology that we have and we are facing? Talking about drones. Now, 30,000 drones, Congress allowed, legalized them to be on our sky and, to surveil us, and maybe one day even to drop a bomb over our home. What do you think now our chances to adapt to this new challenge of the technology that we're facing?
I will assure you, Luca, that the adaptation is already beginning. There is technology and strategy to defeat drones. They can be made inoperable. They can be brought down. There is other technology that's being used, sonic and light weapons that are far advanced to anything that we've known about in the past. One researcher called me from Iowa, taking a sabbatical out there, and he said, "Look, we're 20 to 30 years ahead of what the American people know about." And so the possibilities of being attacked or have these weapons used against the American people is great. But there are weaknesses. There are things that can be done. And I know that the American people that I talk to and am in communication with are putting those online right now.
Perfect. And also another thing, we have an advantage and a disadvantage. When used to be the militia during the colonist time was organized, okay? There was family, the little communities, they were prepared. And that was good. I think it was good because they need to have organization. At the same time, one of the things today we don't have is this type of organization. But in my opinion, it could be also good, because if we have too much of a centralization of an official militia, let's say state militia or city militia, that would be much more easier to be infiltrated and sometimes also to be taken out. Instead, if we have today patriots, individuals, Americans, men and women, understand what we are staking, and they commit themselves, regardless of the odds, to defend freedom, to defend this republic as individuals. I mean, I read a couple of articles of yours. I remember there was, I think it was something with the bolt action rifle. Something that every hunter normally has.
Yes.
And there was a great article. If you can I don't want you to read the article, just to remind a little bit the team, because that was a very inspiring information, I think. Every one of us, we don't need to have, the latest weapon. We don't need to have the super full automatic or whatever. The heart and knowledge and marksmanship and the commitment.
Luca, we found out in Vietnam, we found out certainly in Afghanistan, that the most sophisticated army in the world has been held at times to just barely getting by against primitive forces. And it's because those forces utilized the weapons they had, the technology they had, the tactics that they had, which were bold and got the job done. Guerrilla warfare. I trained in guerrilla warfare. It's a magnificent weapon of war if you have to use it. But I have to tell you that, again, the American people, far too many of them, at least so far, lack the motivation to look into this and get past computer games and going to the bar on Friday night and whatever it is that they do for entertainment. Nothing wrong with entertainment. It's when you put entertainment in front of everything else that America begins to suffer, and we are suffering greatly because the American people, by and large, have said we'll leave this to someone else.
Perfect. I have a few callers that they've been trying to hold. Let's see if they're still there. I don't know. Let's see. Caller, are you on the air? I think they go. Okay, no problem. Before we go ahead, there is an information that I wanted to share. Michael, please share about what's going on tomorrow in Lake Havasu with the cemetery.
Okay, tomorrow morning, Memorial Day, service in Havasu Cemetery, 10 a.m. So if you're in the area, come on out and give your show up for the service and for the veterans and for the people that served our country.
Okay,
10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
I would like to say something about the veterans and Memorial Weekend. I mean, guys, if you really care about the veterans, this is my personal opinion, of course, you don't need to agree, start to talk to your congressman and start to say, stop funding billions and trillions, that's what we give in the last few years, of foreign aids to countries and to the military-industrial complex. I mean, just right now, we're giving, I don't know how many billions to Ukraine. That is not even our business when we have our veterans sitting into these hospitals that we pretty much, we let them die. I mean, come on. You want to be patriotic? Be active. Start to say, stop the fraud, stop the international aids that we don't, according to the Constitution, never was written anywhere that we need to pay our tax dollar to anybody else in the world. And more important, take care with that money to our veterans. What do you think about that, Mr. Evensen?
I couldn't agree with you more. Look, the people that have earned the right and paid the price at whatever level they served were willing to do so for their nation as they understood it to be, a republic with republic values. And so we must honor them, and this ongoing VA scandal is such an outrageous affront to those folks. But let's keep in mind that on Memorial Day we honor those who went to their eternal rest trying to defend this nation.
Yes, and I say something, because I want to be very fair. I come from a country like Italy where that was pretty much the last constitutional war was addressed to I mean was declared. I mean that was World War II, and I'm thankful, because my family. I was born in Rome and grew up in Anzio, and it was a big landing place, and my family were rescued by American blood. Okay, so I'm very thankful for that. But also, I would like to say, let's also start to learn. When people now you hear on the news, you watch the news and say, "Oh, we had to go to war." First of all, these are no wars. The last war we really fought, according to the Constitution declared by Congress, was World War II. Everything since the Korean War was just a United Nations police force action. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Evensen.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. And of course, those of us that have observed this through the years have felt such pain in knowing that the people that make these decisions can't or won't. They won't do what they need to do by the Constitution, and therefore letting this worldwide body run the organization. We know during Korean War that Russian intelligence was giving North Korea the information before our troops had it. And so it's an ongoing debacle. We should not be in these places now.
Exactly. And I'm sure you're familiar with the name Michael Newt. You remember
yes.
Private
Yes.
Michael Newt? I was even in the country then. I came here to 1998. But, as my duty as a new American, I wanted to learn as much as possible of what this country was facing, because I had an idea when I came here. I was still ignorant in my first few years. Then I tried to catch up a little bit, and I learned about him like I learned about you. Do you know anything? Can you remind a little bit? You're very familiar with him, probably better than me. Who was Michael Newt, and what exactly did Private Michael Newt?
Well, and I hope that I'm correct here. I believe I am. But he was one that refused to wear the blue beret.
Yes.
Said, I will not serve under that command. I will serve under an American commander. Now, I knew his father reasonably well. I did not know him, but I do know this. I know that the philosophy behind his decision was sound, and everyone else that has been assigned to that should have laid down their arms and walked away.
Yes, this was under the Clinton administration, if I will remember.
Yes,
correct. Perfect.
That's correct.
And that's what I was hoping. People understand that now, of course, strategically, I've been sarcastic, when our soldiers or National Guards go overseas, they don't give anymore the blue beret or the patches with the United Nations. Technically, you're still under United Nations command, because there is also, this is United Nations approved mission. They are police force action, international police force action, and that's what American people must understand. And I respect still the soldiers, because anyway, at least they're there. They try to defend each other. At that point, I think if I was one enlisted guy, a volunteer, I would go there, and at that point, unfortunately, I would not be there anymore after what I know. But if once I'm there, I'm stuck there, I still commit to my brothers and sisters, and I will go there to do everything to come back home in one piece.
I believe that, Luca. And look, there are some nations in the world that we can understand that a worldwide force, a United Nations force, would be advantageous to them because they have no army, or they're being run over by another nation, and there probably is a place for that. But not in the sense that we are a part of this ongoing police action around the world. It should be handled locally by the nation and perhaps neighboring nations to it.
Exactly. I remember 2001, even before 9/11, okay? I was living in California at the time. Sorry for me. But anyway, and I remember I wanted to decide what I really wanted to do in my new American life. And I remember I went to the Army recruiting officer, and I got my paperwork, and I was almost late because I came here, I was 29, and I said, you know what, maybe I would like to join the Army, or at least the National Guard. I wanted to do something. It was almost like my debt, my blood debt towards this country, especially coming from Italy. You know what happened to me. I wanted to do something for this country. Then I started to learn. I was grateful that I had enough time to learn information about all the things that we're talking about here, United Nations and global government, all these things. And I decided my commitment, my oath, I took my oath in 2005 as a new American citizen. I said, I commit myself as a citizen, as a soldier citizen for freedom, as a soldier citizen for truth, to defend this republic here in my city council, in my county supervisor meeting, in front of my congressman office, because I believe that's what they're doing now. They're sending out the best men and women. Normally, a man that wants to defend this country is not afraid to die, is the best we have, because they already proved that we don't want to play pansy, drink his cafe latte, and playing video games. These guys are ready to commit them life. They want them away from here. That's why another theory that I have, and correct me if I'm wrong, we are sending overseas most of our troops. They're all far away from home. We have left with almost no defenses here. And I think the more important, that's why they're so afraid of returning veterans, because when they return with the truth, they know the scam that is out there, and they know what's happening to this country. I would be very afraid of a man or a woman that was not afraid to die for this country coming back after they know what they know. And
well, you surmised it perfectly. I fear that the brightest and best have gone out to try and do their best and have come back mutated into something that they don't even recognize. And it's a dangerous precedent to set, having these homecoming troops, incoming troops coming back home to what they're facing here. And perhaps they've even been programmed to a certain extent that they'll respond at a certain call to do what they're told, wherever that may be. And I fear for that kind of internal mechanism that we have within our armed forces now.
Okay, now, what would you... First of all, I would like to plug your website. You have a beautiful website with a lot of information. Also, you go around giving speeches and very informative talks. What is your website, please?
Folks can reach me at, of course, World Wide Web at theheartlandusa.com. Very active site. I am leaving next week for a large conference in Montana, where I'll be one of the featured speakers. We do this as a matter of training and an effort to get folks on board.
And when you say training, exactly, what people would expect to go to one of your classes or training session? What do you train? What is your material, curriculum?
First of all, let me tell you a couple of things I do not do. I don't talk about politics.
Okay.
Politics to me it's a dirty subject, and I don't want to get involved with it. People have their opinions. Most of them are wrong, and I'm not going to change many of them. So I go ahead and say, first of all, that's it. The second thing that I will not do is teach people how to become an enemy of someone else. We've already got enough of that.
Yes.
We train them on the issues to get through this crisis, whether that's how to defend themselves, how to forage for themselves, how to communicate when communications are down. It is very basic, the kinds of things you would expect that would be needed in a crisis situation. And make no mistake, Luca, that crisis is coming.
Exactly. And I think it's very important because you're given at least the tools to try, because the resistance, I call it the resistance, we're all the resistance. Our first duty, in my opinion, is to resist, to be alive, because we are precious. I mean, the enemies may be always replaced. Every one of us is irreplaceable, especially in this continuous struggle for freedom. And I think it's very important. It's not just about shooting a rifle straight at 500 yards with the 4 minutes of angles. I think it's very important, first of all the rest of education and knowledge to keep, because we don't have an army behind with logistics and giving us food and taking care of our bed, all these things like now they do. We need to take care of everything about ourselves.
Well, on every level, sir, we have to do that because, frankly, I have to tell you, there's a fine difference, a fine line between offense and defense. I do not encourage people, nor do I train them to be offensive. I train them to be defensive because that is what they need to be. However, should the situation call for it, certainly they would do what they have to do. Patriots have done that since 1776.
Go ahead, Mike, please. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Mr. Evensen,
yes.
What about the Homeland Security demonizing returning troops as calling them terrorists and saying they are, you really need to watch out for these guys that they're like an enemy to our state now?
Well, Michael, isn't that interesting that they recruit them, train them, send them off, encourage them, stand behind them, pretty much, have them do what they have done, some things very difficult, and then when they return home, as you say, they're demonized for the very things that the government encouraged them to do. Is that not a catch-22?
And the average troop, I think they're probably more awake than anyone, the military, and so it's probably just the people at the top that are.
Well, the people at the top, Michael, are let me tell you, the Pentagon is a cesspool for politics and for defeatist thinking when it comes to waging war. if you must wage war, if you must enter the theater, then I think it's immoral. I think you will go to hell, in my view, because you wasted treasure, you wasted blood, you wasted people, simply because you didn't have the courage or the ability to do what needed to be done as quickly and efficiently as possible. That's what waging war is about, if it comes to that, and I don't see that happening in the Pentagon.
Perfect. Mr. Evensen, I remind to the listeners you're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom on 1340 AM and all over the world on Guerrilla Media Network and also on lovegunsfreedom.com. If we can please say the basic, let's say 3 or 4 basic tips. I'm not going to hear to the class, but your advices to the average family that's listening to the show to prepare to what's coming right now. This does not mean that they have to go to fight the revolution. I'm talking about just to try to preserve a little bit of dignity and safety in their lives with their family. What would you suggest?
Well, first of all, you have to have the tools by which to survive and defend yourself. For me, that first choice is a 12-gauge shotgun, simply because it is the most utilitarian, the best weapon devised for any kind of combat, close or a little bit longer range. It also has the ability to forage for animal life when necessary to sustain your life and eat. That is number one. And number two is a 30 caliber rifle of some kind. I prefer 308. It has the range and certainly the impact power to take down that which you're shooting at. The last one would be a small caliber, a 22, thereabouts, for small game and for quiet needs that you might find, and a personal revolver or automatic. I personally prefer revolvers simply because they very seldom jam or have a problem, and you can shoot clearly with them. Those are the 4 that I would say if you're going to invest in, those 4 would start you.
Perfect. This is just about, the defense part. Now, there is more than, of course, this is you always want to defend, otherwise you're not going to be alive. What next? I mean, there's going to be also challenging times economically. I mean, the water, the food. I mean, what the regular average working man? I'm talking not about the guy that has a lot of money. The guy that, is still working paycheck by paycheck. What would you suggest to start to concentrate in focusing his savings?
Well, most first of all, gold and silver, if you can afford a piece or 2 of it, is a good hedge against paying a tax or something that you must, a property tax, whatever your state may have, just to hold the wolf from the door prematurely before they come in. But that would be one aspect. The other would be simply get out of debt if that's possible to do, and then of course start stashing your food sources, because I'll tell you, I look at gold as something that you should have, but look, you can't shoot it and you can't eat it.
Exactly.
So go ahead with something that's going to make some sense, and then of course get your freeze-dried foods and long storage canned foods that will sustain you.
And of course, and I think also another important thing, because I said, this is my personal opinion, of course, we are living in a physical dimension, and we are here on planet Earth, but sometimes when I wake up in the morning, after all the things that I've been learning, and I'm still learning because it's a process, it never stops, if I didn't have my own spirituality, I'm not trying to preach, I'm trying to what I'm going through, my faith, this is also a spiritual battle I could never face. I say, why am I doing all this? I mean, seriously, sometimes I say, why am I, it's almost easy, get me out of here. I mean, and instead I believe that beside all these physical things that are very important in this dimension, especially because I don't believe in taking my life out, I believe in only God can take my life.
Look, I think the most critical,
yes,
the most critical thing you can do, the most important, is to get on your knees and accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. This is it in my worldview. Everything else is a far distant second place, because in the end of it, when you're transitioning from this life to the next, it won't matter what you have in the storage closet or down on your knees, that is across your knees, your musket. It's not going to matter. What's going to matter is that you're ready to meet your Creator, your God,
yes,
and that your sins are forgiven. That is the single most important thing. I should have said that right off the bat, but we were hitting those practical things
yes,
first.
no, I understand. I know, by the way, where you stand on this, so I will just, try to give a chance to share our opinion with the listener, because I really believe that too, because at the end of the day, this is just another battlefield where the evil is fighting good, and we're here, we need to make a decision. We need to take a stand. And sometimes I don't care the odds. Sometimes the odds may be against us. It's not just about winning the war. It's about, in my opinion, putting on records that we stood against evil, regardless everything. And
Correct.
This is one day we're going to be judged by that. This is my personal spiritual journey that I'm going through. Because I tell you, the first time, a few years ago, 2000, I remember 2001, when I started to wake up and I started to read and learn, and I read different books, like I'm sure you did, try to learn all the basics, I started to say, oh my God, this is overwhelming. This is like living in a nightmare. And this is coming from a naive guy coming from Italy that he thought, America, the land of the free. And don't get me wrong, it used to be the land of the free. I want it back. Okay, that's my point. And when you learn about the CFR, global government, United Nations, a Federal Reserve is private, and all these things, you say, wow.
Yes.
This is hell.
Well, it is, and it's daunting to an American, and not that we stand anywhere other than on an equal footing with everyone else in the world, but it is difficult for those that have had the advantage that Americans have had. I can't imagine what it must be like in a second or third world country to realize all of a sudden that what little you have is at the whim of a group of people that could care less whether you live or die. They serve a Luciferian master, and they are out for power, money, and control. End of subject.
Exactly. You know what is good about though? People say, oh my God, if you don't like it here. Now, first of all, I love it here because I have still a stand to take it back what our founding fathers fought and died for. This is our right to take it back. In Europe, we never had it. They never had it. Okay? So the point here, we still have, first of all, the moral stand to say this is our land, it's our rights, and we want it back. We've been taken over. We understand the last at least 100 years since 1913 was the first step. It was on the step before. But before we go there, the point we've been taken over by international bankers, at least since the creation of the private Federal Reserve. But we want it back. In Europe, since the time of the Romans, since the time of the Middle Ages, in the time of the princes and kings, we never had it. And now we are, of course, directly into the step of these international private bankers, that like the European community was the first step to create by this puzzle new world order. They first needed to create this European community that now is under the control of one central bank. They pretty much they appointed now no more electing people as a first minister or prime ministers. They do this appointed by the bankers. In Italy they had, for example, a guy that was not even elected but was appointed, and he was a guy from JP Morgan for a few years. I mean,
well, it's not only the nations, Luca, but it's also it permeated those that would happen to be of the Catholic faith. The papal nation is as bad as anyone else, and so what do we expect when we look at the morality of the people? Why can't we make these decisions? Because really, what we're being spoon-fed is one level of corruption after another, whether it's political from a government, whether it's the court system, the banking system, or even our religious system, wherever you might be in that. That's why I pretty much moved away from organized religion. It serves the system. It does not serve people. It does not serve God's motives for people. And so I think when we add all that up, we realize that every 250, 275 years, a nation like the United States rises and falls, comes from complete slavery to complete freedom to complete slavery, and we're about to enter that final part of the cycle.
Perfect. And I agree with you, especially speaking about the organized religion. I was coming from, of course, being born in Rome doesn't take much. You're automatically a Catholic just when have a choice to choose. And I started to learn since I was a child. Even before I wanted to become an American, I never liked the idea to bow down in front of another man, because after all, it's a theocracy what it is. And I remember my family always the first, oh my God, what are you doing? Repent. No, excuse me, the Pope is just a man. I always say, okay, maybe sometimes a good man, sometimes a bad man, but I'm never going to bow down in front of any man, period. And that's right there. I knew that I wasn't really so much inclined to be there in Italy for so long. But more important, I realized that, of course, now they're using these different churches for the purpose of creating this world religion. And unfortunately, there's another proof is we see now the new Pope, the latest Pope, that is talking about global socialism, communism and the redistribution of wealth. And, of course, other things that, honestly, they are all precursors to show that every organization can be manipulated and unfortunately can be used to control the
Well,
masses.
Luke, I believe that in the end of it, when the end time does arrive, and it's very close at hand, it will be because the church embraced the world system. The world system embraced the church, and there was nothing to separate them, nothing to give the people a standing with God. It's all going to be standing with man.
I've been receiving so many calls. All I want to say to the callers is one: please stick with the topic. If you want to talk about our first guest, we were talking about local issues, about please, this is not the time. We are here on the phone with Mr. Greg Evensen. Are you calling from Michigan, right now?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So we're talking about, the topic. I'm going to put you on the line. There are no filtering here, as you know. Just please use a language FCC approved. And let's see, there was a person. If you were on the phone because you wanted to talk about something about elections, next show, please, okay? Let's stick with the topic. Let's see. Are you still there, caller?
Hi, Luca. This is Michelle Arnett in Bullhead City.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, Greg. Hi. How are you?
Well, very good, Michelle, and I'm so
Survival
glad
Corner.
you found a way to call in. Thank you.
Luca, when I used to do my show, Greg was one of my favorite guests.
Great. I'm so glad. It's small world.
And I learned so much from Greg. The first time I ever heard him, I cried.
Oh.
But then I started learning from him, and it's because of Greg that I had the courage to go out and learn how to take care of myself and learn how to shoot a gun.
I'm
Greg
so
knows
proud
that
of you, Michelle. I'm really proud of you. And I remember that first show. Look, I make a lot of people cry, so don't feel bad.
I'm crying too now. My cry. Let's cry all together.
But, Greg, I just couldn't miss the opportunity to call and tell you hi. And please give my best to Liz. And you are always in my prayers. And thank you for mentioning the fact that our spiritual well-being is always number one in our preparedness.
That's right, Michelle. God bless you. Take care.
God bless you, too. Thanks a lot for taking my call, Luca.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you for holding, because I know that this phone was ringing and ringing, and I say, I have to get it. Anyway, more calls. They're welcome. We have the last few minutes. We are here on the air with Michael and Luca on Love, Guns, and Freedom on 1340 AM and also on Guerrilla Media Network all over the world. Also, you can go to lovegunsfreedom.com. You know that I will put here the show, the all show, uncensored show, and also on YouTube. And Mr. Greg Evensen, please, I would like to give you the opportunity to share whatever you want to say to our listeners. Anything you're doing, something you need to share, like anything you want. Please.
Well, thank you, sir. I was keenly aware the other day. I began looking back. I had a little health issue and had to have that addressed, and I thought, really at the end of it, what have I done, if anything? Not so much what I've done, but what have I been able to do for others? And I began questioning just a little bit, what is it? Why do we struggle so hard? And I guess I have to tell you, my father flew a B-24 during World War II. My great-grandfather was in the U.S. Cavalry. There's a long line all the way back to the time of independence. And I'm no different. I'm a freedom fighter. I will not stop until I'm dead. I feel it's worth it for my kids, my grandkids, which I have, and others' children, other people's children. And that's the legacy that we can hand on, Luca, and you're doing a great job through this program, helping keep people aware. All I can tell you is whatever you're doing, don't quit. Be encouraged through Jesus Christ, and by all means, keep up that which you are best at doing for other people. That will keep you close to the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. And by the way, I want to let you know something. When I came to America, of course, every man and woman is different. We're not, but I always idolize the stories of my grandfather used to tell me, like, when you talk about your father, flying on the bombers and maybe risking their lives, overseas. I always idolize the American people, especially because my existence, I am alive because my family was able to be alive when they were hiding for their lives, fighting the Nazi. I always been thinking about American people like generous people, ready to fight for somebody they even didn't know. And many young men and women died because also women, they were Red Cross, by the way, not just men fighting on the beaches of Anzios. And I want to thank you because you are the type of man that inspired me to become an American. And I'm glad that I found you. I'm glad that we find each other. And like many others, like Mike, people that I know in the station, we stand for freedom. Sometimes we don't need to agree on everything, but we stand as the principle of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Well, God bless you, Luca, and Michael as well. Keep up your great work, and perhaps we'll be together again.
Let me get 1 second. The last call. Maybe we can get them on. Let's see.
Sure.
Caller, are you still there?
Hey, Luca, I'm still here. I did want to change the subject.
No. First of all, no, we need to stick with the subject. Who are you? And if it's off subject, I'm sorry. We need to move on. Next show. Anything you want to say to Mr. Evensen? Hello? I guess not. Sorry, I was very firm. This needs to be to the subject. So listen, Mr. Evans, I want to thank you again. One more time, the website, please.
It is theheartlandusa.com. Thank you, Luca.
Thank you very much. Keep in touch, okay?
Blessings.
Thank you. Okay, Mike, that was a nice, interesting interview.
That was great. I like him.
By the way, I really learned about him many years ago, even before I was an American. There's a great different articles on different outlets, very informative articles, and I'm glad this guy is this man. I mean, is going around sharing this information he has.
I wanted to ask him, how does he think we need to wake people up, because we really outnumber these globalists and these bankers 10 to 1. You know, how do we get people to wake them up to?
I think what we're doing here, it's in every community, we think, we live in our community, okay? Sometimes we cannot change the world, but we can change our own little homes, our neighbors. I mean, think about it. You live in a neighbors. If every one of us spread out in our little small communities and start to share information, that's why I'm so blessed, and I'm really thankful to this radio, because I don't really care about radio career. I'm not that good. That's not my job. But to have the opportunity to share this information, I used to do this like with flyers and talking like a crazy at the park or things like that. Now I can reach more people. We can reach more people. It's so vital. This is a local radio, but we can reach a lot of people in our community. I know we're also talking to representatives. We're talking to local governments. Look, today we had here our state representative here, and we try to educate each other on issues. So that's, I think, my opinion, the best we can do is think small, think local, and everyone can change the little part of the world. We can change our country and hopefully the world for better. You know?
Well, do you think people have been brain damaged too much by the fluoride? I mean, it's hard to get through to some people.
Well, I understand. Listen, and I understand. Sometimes you need to move on. I mean, you try to do what you can, and you see sometimes this is not just stupidity on its own. It's a process started a long time ago. I remember one of the Rockefeller's first family members, I think the grandfather said, I want to have a nation of workers, not thinkers. They started to create this sort of foundation that they teach to the teachers, okay? So the education system is so important. It didn't start today with Common Core. It started 100 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
They tried to pretty much create a nation not of thinkers, but just of workers. And so, the television as a weapon of mass destruction, I call it. And then, of course, your food and everything else. So
and the pharmaceuticals.
Pharmaceutical. I mean, look now, all these gun dramas, these shootings. Before we go into the guns, every one of them, or at least 90% of them, is all proven they have medication, heavy psychological medication. The sponsors, Michael, one more time.
One more time with the sponsors.
Before you go to the sponsor, let me say something. I want to say thank you, Lenny and Rachel from Kingman, for the great friendship that I have with you guys. And yes, you're the greatest. Lenny and Rachel from Kingman. Now go with the sponsors.
Colorado River Vapor. You got to go by one of their two locations, 4400 Highway 95. Sweet C and 1931 Highway 95 in Bullhead City. Go see Tom and his professional staff. They'll take care of you. Ditch the ash. Come and enjoy their juice bar and their cozy atmosphere. Catch the wave and vape. Great guys, great people over there.
Yes, and remember, this show is on the air not just because we are here, but we're here because of sponsors like Colorado River Vapor. We are able to bring you this information. This is freedom of speech on steroids. I really believe that. I respect the radio for that.
He's a songwriter, a poet, a rifleman.
I'm not afraid.
And a constitutional activist.
I'm not afraid.
Italian by birth.
I'm not afraid.
American by choice. Luca Zanna.
I'm not afraid.
And his new CD, Love, Guns, and Freedom. 16 powerful songs on one CD from the heart of a patriot. For download or to order the CD, go to www.lovegunsfreedom.com. That's www.lovegunsfreedom.com. Lyrics for your mind, music for your heart. Luca Zanna's new CD, Love, Guns, and Freedom.